5,000 sailors. One steel city. Zero way out. Right now, there are U.S. Navy sailors who have been living on a warship for over 300 days straight. No real breaks, no time off, no coming home. The USS Gerald R. Ford left port on June 24, 2025 for what was supposed to be a routine trip. 8 months later, it was still at sea. And counting. These men and women don't just show up and sail. They go through months of brutal preparation before the ship ever moves. And what happens on board once they're out there, most people have absolutely no idea. This is the full story of how aircraft carrier crews prepare for months at sea, and the secrets that almost never get told. What you're about to hear covers everything the military recruitment videos leave out. The training that starts almost a year before deployment, the round-the-clock work schedules that push sailors to their limits, the food operations, the sleep science, the psychological battles, and the mechanical pressure that mounts with every extra day at sea. And here's the thing, right now, in 2026, this topic matters more than ever. Because U.S. carriers are being pushed to lengths not seen since the Vietnam War era. The sailors on those ships are doing something extraordinary, and most Americans back home have never heard the full picture. If you respect what these men and women sacrifice, drop a proud in the comments right now. Let them know someone's paying attention. The training machine. The year before departure. Most people think deploying on an aircraft carrier means the Navy calls you up, you pack a bag, and you ship out. That couldn't be further from the truth. Before a carrier ever leaves the dock for a real deployment, the crew goes through a training pipeline that takes the better part of a full year. The U.S. Navy calls it the Optimized Fleet Response Plan, or OFRP. It's a carefully built schedule of maintenance, training, more training, and then certification before a sailor ever gets to the open ocean on a real mission. Here's how it actually works. It starts in the shipyard. After coming back from a previous deployment, a carrier enters a maintenance phase that lasts around 6 months. Every system on the ship gets looked at, from the nuclear reactors that power it, to the elevators that move aircraft between decks, to the catapult systems that launch jets off the flight deck. Nothing gets overlooked. But here's what the shipyard phase doesn't fix, and this is where it gets interesting. You can fix a ship's bolts and wires. You cannot fix a crew that doesn't know how to operate as one unit. And that's exactly what the next phase tackles. After maintenance, the carrier enters unit-level training. This is where individual sailors and departments start sharpening their skills. Engineers practice managing power systems under simulated failures. Pilots fly land-based practice runs, touching down and taking off on fields designed to mimic a carrier deck. Every person on board has a job, and in this phase, they drill that job until it becomes muscle memory. Then comes one of the most critical exercises in the entire training cycle, the Composite Training Unit exercise. Sailors call it COMTUX for short. This is a live, large-scale simulation where the entire carrier strike group, the carrier itself, plus its escort destroyers and support ships, runs through realistic combat scenarios together. Air threats, submarine threats, surface ship engagements, all simulated but run at full intensity. Think of it like a full dress rehearsal for war. And pilots face something even more specific. Before joining the carrier at sea, naval aviators practice what are called field carrier landing practices. These are repeated touch-and-go landings on a land-based runway that's been marked in size to match a carrier flight deck exactly. Landing on a moving ship at sea is one of the most demanding skills in all of aviation. The margin for error is about 40 feet wide and 300 feet long, and the ship is moving. Pilots repeat this drill dozens of times until the approach feels natural. After all this, the carrier and its strike group do what's called a group sail, the first time everyone actually trains together as one unit at sea. It's described as a coordinated stress test. Every department, every ship, Every aircraft has to prove it can work alongside the others before the Navy will certify the group as ready to deploy. From start to finish, this preparation phase takes approximately 8 months. That's 8 months of training before a single real-world mission begins. Quick question for you before we keep going. Do you think the U.S. military gets enough credit for the years of work that go into preparing for just one deployment? Drop your answer in the comments. Would love to hear what you think. The city that never sleeps. Now here's where things get really interesting, because once that ship leaves the dock, it becomes something that very few people ever get to see up close. An aircraft carrier is described as a city at sea, and that's not just a catchy phrase. Between 5,000 and 6,000 people are living, working, eating, and sleeping on one ship at the same time. That's roughly the population of a small American town crammed into a vessel that's about 1,100 feet long. And unlike a real city, there's nowhere to go. No leaving early. No stepping out for fresh air whenever you feel like it. Below-deck sailors, the ones working in engineering, supply, weapons, and maintenance, can go for weeks at a time without ever stepping outside to see daylight. Let that sink in for a second. Weeks without sunlight. The ship runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There is no night shift and day shift the way most people think about it. The carrier operates on watch cycles, where sailors rotate through periods of duty and rest around the clock. Flight operations can happen at 3 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon. It depends entirely on the mission. The work hours are not gentle. Sailors routinely put in 10 to 15 hours of active duty per day, and when flight operations are running, the pace doesn't slow down. As soon as the last aircraft lands, the deck crew starts repositioning planes for the next launch cycle, which is typically only about an hour away. Squadron maintenance crews work through the entire night to make sure every aircraft is ready for the following day's operations. There are no off days on a carrier, not really. And here's a secret that almost no one talks about. The Navy is now using technology to fight crew fatigue at a level that was unheard of even a decade ago. A program called CREW, Command Readiness Endurance and Watch Standing, is testing wearable devices on sailors that automatically upload sleep and readiness data when the sailor walks past sensor hubs placed in common areas like mess halls. This information feeds into a scheduling system that maps each sailor's individual sleep patterns and flags when fatigue risk becomes dangerous. The system can even suggest what they call protected sleep windows, blocks of time that leadership locks in to make sure certain sailors get uninterrupted rest before high-risk operations. A large study in 2024, covering over 5,200 Navy personnel, found that sleep aboard ships is significantly more disrupted than sleep ashore. That's not surprising, but what the Navy is doing about it absolutely is. Before we dive deeper, please take a second to like this video and subscribe. Over 98% of viewers watch without subscribing. It costs you nothing but makes a huge difference to us. The food operation. Numbers that will shock you. Now let's talk about something that rarely gets mentioned in any documentary about aircraft carriers. The food. Feeding 5,000 to 6,000 people 3 times a day on a moving ship in the middle of the ocean with no grocery stores within hundreds of miles. That is a logistical challenge that would shut down most restaurants on land within a week. Here's what happens on a U.S. Navy carrier every single day at sea. The ship's culinary specialists, the Navy's version of a kitchen crew, prepare 1,600 pounds of meat every day. They also go through 350 pounds of lettuce, 160 gallons of milk, and 30 cases of cereal. And the coffee alone adds up to 20,000 cups consumed daily across the crew. The mess hall on a carrier has been serving meals 21 out of every 24 hours every single day since the late 1950s. Someone is always eating. Someone is always cooking. The kitchen never fully closes, and menus aren't boring or repetitive. They rotate on a 14 to 20 one-day cycle so meals don't feel like a loop. On birthdays, Sailors get prime rib or lobster. On holidays, the galley makes traditional American holiday food, because the Navy knows that good food is not just fuel, it's morale, it's a reminder of home. But here's the question most people never think to ask: where does all that food come from when you're months out at sea? Supply ships. Every 7 to 10 days, a Navy supply vessel pulls up alongside the carrier while both ships are underway, meaning both are moving at the same time, in the same direction, at the same speed, and transfers between 400,000 and 700,000 pounds of supplies via thick steel cables stretched between the two ships. This process is called replenishment at sea. It looks almost impossible the first time you see it. Two massive ships cruising in tight formation, hundreds of feet of water between them, and pallets of food and supplies riding those cables across the gap. It happens in all weather conditions at any hour of the day. It's one of the most underappreciated skills in the entire naval fleet, and it's the reason a carrier can stay at sea for months without coming home. Here's something to think about. That replenishment at sea process, two massive ships transferring hundreds of thousands of pounds of cargo while both are moving, sounds almost unbelievable. Have you ever seen footage of that? Tell us in the comments whether you knew that was even possible. The psychological battle, the hidden war on board. Everything we've covered so far, the training, the work schedule, the food logistics, that's the operational side of a carrier deployment. But there's another dimension that the military doesn't always talk about loudly, and that's the human side. Months at sea takes a toll that goes beyond tired muscles and long hours. The confined environment of a carrier is relentless. Thousands of people living in tight quarters for months at a time means personal space is almost non-existent. Some sailors sleep in bunks stacked 3 high, in rooms designed for efficiency rather than comfort. There are no windows in most parts of the ship. The noise of operations is constant, and the pressure to perform flawlessly when any mistake on a flight deck can be fatal never goes away. The USS Eisenhower returned home in July 2024 after a 9-month deployment to the Middle East that sailors described as simply non-stop. One sailor who had spent 2 straight birthdays at sea, one during training and one on deployment, said it best when asked what he was looking forward to most about going home. His answer? Getting dressed with the lights on, not having to wear shower shoes. That's the reality for these sailors. It's not dramatic. It's quiet, grinding, day after day endurance. And when deployments get extended, as they increasingly have since 2024, that endurance is pushed to the absolute edge. The Navy has taken steps to address this. Today, carriers are equipped with gyms, educational programs, and onboard counselors. But one of the most surprising mental health tools now stationed on the USS Gerald R. Ford is a 5-year-old Labrador Retriever named Captain Sage. She's trained to detect elevated cortisol, the stress hormone in sailors, and proactively approaches crew members who are showing signs of stress before they even have to ask for help. The ship also relies on something that no technology can replace: the mentorship culture built between senior and junior sailors. Senior crew members serve as anchors for younger sailors who are far from home for the first time. That peer-to-peer support system is credited by Navy researchers as one of the most effective tools for maintaining crew cohesion during long deployments. But the Navy is also being honest about something important. Extended deployments create what experts call readiness debt, a buildup of delayed maintenance, accumulated fatigue, and deferred repairs that quietly pile up the longer a ship stays at sea beyond its scheduled return date. Non-skid flight deck coatings that protect aircraft during landings wear down faster than planned. Aircraft elevators and arresting gear systems, the wires that catch landing jets, experience more strain than the maintenance schedule accounted for. Since 2024, the average carrier deployment has grown from the standard 6 months to 8 or 9 months. The USS Ford's current deployment is heading toward 300 days, a length not seen in the modern U.S. Navy in decades. The sailors handling that extended mission aren't complaining publicly. They're professionals. They were trained for exactly this. But the people who study naval readiness are watching closely, because a crew can handle almost anything, but even the best trained sailors in the world have limits. The flight deck, the most dangerous workplace in the world. Before we wrap up, there's one more layer of this story that deserves its own moment. The flight deck of an aircraft carrier is widely recognized as the most dangerous work environment in the United States military. Jet engines running at full power. Aircraft launching and landing within seconds of each other. Fuel lines, weapons, and arresting wires all active at the same time. And the people managing all of it are doing so through a color-coded system of jerseys. Because on a flight deck, with engines screaming and the wind roaring, verbal communication is nearly impossible. Yellow jerseys direct aircraft. Green jerseys handle maintenance and catapult systems. Red jerseys load weapons and fight fires. Blue jerseys move aircraft manually. Purple jerseys, nicknamed grapes, handle all the aviation fuel. White jerseys cover safety and medical. Every color means something specific, and every person knows exactly what to do the second they step onto that deck. The timing of carrier flight operations runs on cycles. After launch, the deck crew immediately begins repositioning aircraft for the next cycle, which starts roughly 60 minutes later. When returning aircraft start landing, the arresting gear crew takes over. The process is choreographed to a precision level that rivals any professional operation anywhere in the world. In 2024 alone, the USS Gerald R. Ford conducted 33,444 flight deck moves and 16,351 aircraft fueling operations. In one deployment. Those are not small numbers. That's the equivalent of running a mid-sized regional airport, except your runway is 1,000 feet long, moves through the water at 30 knots, and your parking lot is also your weapons storage facility. Last one from us. Of everything you've heard in this video, what surprised you the most? Was it the training timeline, the food numbers, the stress technology? Let us know in the comments. Seriously, we read them. Conclusion. Here's the bottom line on all of this. What American aircraft carrier crews go through, from the 8 months of preparation before deployment, to the daily grind of life at sea, to the mental and physical demands of a 9 or 10-month mission, is one of the most demanding things any person in uniform does in peacetime, let alone in active operations. These are not just sailors on a ship. They are engineers, pilots, doctors, cooks, counselors, and weapons specialists. They are 5,000 people operating a floating airbase that never stops, never sleeps, and never comes home on anyone else's schedule but the mission's. Right now, as you watch this, there are U.S. Navy sailors on the USS Gerald R. Ford who have been at sea for over 8 months, with more weeks still ahead of them. They didn't ask for recognition. They just kept doing the job. The least the rest of us can do is understand what that job actually looks like. If this video gave you something you didn't know before, if it changed how you think about what these men and women go through, hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss what we cover next. Every like helps more people see this story, and these sailors deserve to have their story seen.